teaching you how to make a thank you card using the faux watercoloring technique. So let's get started on our project. So first of all, this is the card we're going to be making today. It is a thank you card, and we're going to be using the stamp set Positive Thoughts. Now, I don't normally stamp with this many colors, but I do stamp based on what inspires me. And what inspired me for this card was this gorgeous lei that my daughter gave me. It was created by her friend Dale, and you can see it's very unique and special. And so I wanted to create a thank you card for Dale, and so that's what we're going to do today. The first thing that we're going to need for this card is a piece of Whisper White cardstock. This is 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. Now I'm going to be using every single image here in the Positive Thought stamp set. So I'm going to start with this image here. I'll be using shaded spruce ink. I'm going to ink up my stamp, and then on the top left corner I'm going to stamp it once, then I'm going to stamp it again and again and again, and I'm going to over stamp it. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to do that process again, and I just want to over stamp this image back and forth on top like that. Okay, the next stamp that I'm going to use is this butterfly image. So I'm going to be using Mango Melody ink. Is it Mango Melody? Yes, got the name right. And I'm going to stamp right over the top of that bottom section there, and I'm going to stamp it again and stamp it again and stamp it again. Okay, then I'm going to ink up again, and I'm going to go back over the top, and I'm going to just fill this in and over stamp this area, so almost until the butterfly is unrecognizable. All right, the next color that we're going to use is Magenta Madness. I'm going to take this flower stamp from the Positive Thoughts, and I'm going to stamp this a couple times, re-inking it in between, and then I'm going to ink it up again, and I'm just going to go over the whole thing, and I'm going to over stamp it. Okay, and I'm trying to cover as much white space as possible. All right, the next stamp in the set is this little feather. We're going to be using Highland Heather ink. So I'm going to come in with a feather, and I'm going to stamp it in 2 generations like that, and then I'm going to ink it up, and I'm going to just come back over the top and stamp that all the way down in a strip like that. All right, we're going to split up this next stamp here. This is soft seafoam ink, and it's this little stamp here. So I'm going to start with that, and I'm going to put just a little bit of color at the bottom. This is a lighter color, so I'm definitely going to stamp over this several times just to kind of darken that up, and we're just going to do it right there in that bottom part there, and then I'm going to do it again up here just in the top corner a little tiny bit. Okay. All right, so now we've used every single image in the Positive Thoughts stamp set, but I'm going to come back because I want to fill in this area right here. So I'm going to take the shaded spruce ink and that original stamp that I used, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp on the bottom, and I'm going to just fill in a little bit in the bottom, and then I'm going to go back to my butterfly stamp, and I'm going to bring that one here on the side like this and put this nice mango color. Okay, all right. The next color I'm going to use is going to be Real Red. For this, I'm going to use a Sponge Dauber. One of the flowers in the lei was red and it was round, and so I want this to look clearly different from the other images. I'm going to just come and just make it's like I'm making a lei myself, and I'm just going to put those little red round flowers in a row like that. Okay, and if you want to darken them up, you can always go back and you can just layer that ink over top of that circle. There you go. Okay, so we're basically all done. The last thing that I do is I just check to make sure that all the spaces are filled in. So I have a little white space in there. I'm going to try to cover that up, and otherwise I think it looks pretty good. It looks like there's a little bit we could cover up there, but it's okay if it has a little space, but you want to try to cover as much of the white cardstock as possible. Let me flip my grid sheet over so it looks a little cleaner. Okay, so once you've covered the whole thing by over stamping with the different images, then you're going to take one of our Stampin Spritzers. We'll remove the cap, and then I'm going to spray this with water. And I want to spray it kind of close to the cardstock, and the cardstock is going to curl a little bit, And the ink is gonna bleed, but I want the ink to bleed. Okay, so then once you saturate that with water, I'm gonna just put that to the side and let it dry. Once the cardstock dries, it's gonna look like this. Now, because it's not watercolor paper, it's just our Whisper White cardstock, the paper is going to be a little bent like that. It's gonna dry a little bent like that. So what I do next, in order to give it that watercolor paper look, is that I use my Tasteful Textile 3D embossing folder. You place this paper inside the embossing folder. You run it through your Stampin Cut and Emboss machine, and the end result is a flattened out piece of colorful paper, and you can see here that it has that texture in there, so it does resemble watercolor paper. All right, so then we're going to take this colorful piece and we're going to take a Whisper White cardstock. This is 5.5 by 8.5 inches. I'm going to fold it in half. Of course, if you have a bone folder, you can use that to make a nice crease. And then I'm going to use my multi-purpose liquid glue, and I'm going to add liquid glue on the back of this piece here. And then I'm going to press this onto the front of the card. So next we need some words. So I'm going to be using a 1 by 2 3/4 piece of Whisper White cardstock, and then I'll also be using a 1 1/4 by 3 inch piece of Espresso cardstock, early Espresso cardstock. So I'm going to take and put some liquid glue on my white piece, and then I'm going to glue that down to the early Espresso cardstock. And this is where our sentiment is going to go. Okay? For the sentiment, I chose to use the word thanks. That's a part of the well-written dies. Now, I didn't just die cut this on basic black cardstock. I die cut this on basic black cardstock that had been glued to one of our foam adhesive sheets. So then when you pull this off of here, you now have a word that has foam behind it. So it's going to lift it on this page. So I'm going to go ahead and peel this out. And then you can see that there's some of the little pieces in there. So I'm going to take a little piercing tool to poke those out. So now I've removed all the little foam pieces and I'm ready to stick this down. So I'm going to go ahead and place this on my white cardstock base. So you can see that we have the word thanks, and what's nice about it is that it's lifted off so nicely with that foam underneath there like that. So now to adhere this on, we're going to be using dimensionals. So let me flip this over. I'm going to grab my dimensionals and I'm going to lift up 2 of them and place it on the back. Take off the backing. And then I'm going to glue this here onto the front of the card. The last thing that we're going to do to this card is we're going to add a flower up here. So I've taken a piece of Whisper White cardstock and I did the faux watercoloring technique on it, just using the butterfly and the leaf stamp. I sprayed it with water and let it dry, and then I'm going to take my small blooms punch and I'm just going to punch out the yellow section there. This is the mango melody color. All right, then I used my In The Tropics Dies and I die cut 2 of these little tiny leaves. Now to assemble this flower, we're going to use glue dots. So I'm going to take and pick up a leaf. I'll place a glue dot on the back, and then I'll place 1 leaf on one side, and then I'll take the second leaf and I will add a glue dot to that, and then I will place this on the opposite side. Okay, and then this is going to get mounted right here in the corner. So you could either mount it that way or you could mount it this way. I'm going to mount it this way with the leaves going down. So then I'm going to want to put a couple of glue dots just right there on the back. So let me lift up my glue dots and put 1, 2 like that, and then we'll stick that in the corner, and then we have our almost finished card because you know I have to have some type of an embellishment. So I'm going to put an embellishment right here in the center of the flower. So I'm going to use the Wonderful Gems because I just love how these look with that little gold flecks in there, and because this card is so colorful, I wanted to use a colorful embellishment. So we have this white and gold embellishment there. So that is our completed card. Now, if you want to see another version of this, here's what it would look like with a rhinestone in the center. So it just all depends on what look you're going for. Now, I really enjoyed creating this card for Dale. It's totally different than my normal style of what I would normally create. I tried a couple different versions. Just to give you some ideas, is I did this here. Now, with this particular sample here, you can see that I did some white embossing here on the side. This is white on white with the Ornate flower embossing folder. I did that because in the photo I was wearing a white muumuu that had white flowers on it. And then as far as how I stamped here, you can see the images a little bit more. I didn't over stamp them as much. And the way that I did these sections was simply by using a post-it note. So what I did is I just laid a post-it note across here like this. I took my stamp, I stamped along like that, then I moved the post-it note, and then I masked off this section, and then I went ahead and I did it section by section, and I created these strips, making it look like strands of flower lace. All right, I also did a similar technique by doing strips, but for these strips, I cut them out of cardstock and I mounted them separately, so I didn't need any post-it notes. Then I did cover the entire surface with a piece of clear tape so that they would look shiny. So this is the card I'm going to be sending to Dale this week to say thank you. I felt that of all of the other samples I created, this one most accurately represented just the uniqueness and the colorful beauty of the amazing lei that he created for me. Well, thanks again for stamping with me today. I love sharing this time with you. I hope you'll come back and stamp with me again soon. Until then, aloha.